I like big books and I cannot lie. Yes, today's video is about exactly that. Big, girthy, stiff books. And why I love them. Why I think too many people worry too much about the amount of books that we're reading rather than the quality of books that we consume. The competitive edge to online and social media and reading goals, and how that for me can take away from just the joy of literature. I personally think that chunky books, when done properly, are the best books. It gives characters opportunities to grow, the plot an opportunity to progress at a natural rate rather than rushed endings and stuff like that. So in today's video, we're going to talk about books that I am 10 out of 10 just buzzing to read. Books that have been sat on my shelf for ages. I haven't put these off due to the girth of them. I just have, like you, a never-ending TBR, and I can only read one book at a time. So grab a cuppa, because today we're talking big books. Before we get into these massive books and celebrate just chunkers, I'm going to give you 15 reasons why I think that you'll potentially just be doing yourself a disservice if you don't read massive books. Reason number one, these are going to be as quick fire as possible. Quality over quantity. I feel like sometimes at the minute social media does encourage us to read more books, and by reading more books we're encouraged to read shorter books to get through them quicker, obviously then missing out on some big, dirty, chunky books. Reason numero two, you're missing out on masterpieces, books that are already famously popular. None of these I have read, but a couple are maybe on my TBR. Books like The Mount of Monte Cristo, Moby Dick, War and Peace, you know, these are all popular books for a reason. 3, character development takes time. You can't build good characters in short books. Or, I think some authors can do it, but it's bloody hard. Number 4, on a similar vein, world building takes time and space. I am a lover of fantasy books, and most of the best fantasy books, in my opinion, are the chunkers, the books where the author takes a lot of time to build the world, immerse you into that world, and I feel like with the shorter books, that's near impossible to do. Number 5, I personally don't believe that shorter necessarily always means better or easier. You look at short books like Of Mice, of Men and things like that, and you know, I think sometimes we can assume that they're just going to be easy, palatable books. And a lot of these short books, especially the classics, have got a lot of themes that take a lot of digging into. And by picking these shorter books up and burning through them, I feel like that can lead to burnout more so than just immersing yourself in one world and really getting lost in it. Number 6 is a biggie. Attention span training. And don't we need it in a world full of social media and quick scrolls and 30-second videos even. I bloody wish it were 30 minutes. We've just lost the ability to sit down and pay attention to something for a prolonged period of time without getting bored and needing a quick dopamine hit. And when you pick up these long books, it just trains your brain again to focus on a task for a prolonged period of time without needing to pick up your phone and scroll and doom scroll, because we know where that gets us. That gets us into a depressive state where we come to the end of it and think, what a bloody waste. Number 7 is just the sheer depth of the books give the authors opportunity to just add so much more detail that will absolutely pay off at the end of the book. You know, things like early reveals that will lead to better endings, subplots. A lot of these opportunities are missed when forcing yourself to read short books. Don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place for short books, but I feel like a lot of short books rely solely on plot alone and can miss out on a lot of the things that are added into bigger chunky books. Number 8, and I think we're all guilty of this, it's just the illusion of productivity. We almost treat books like a fitness tracker, and we get confused, like comparing a page count to a step count, as if hitting a certain number of pages equals success. Someone reading like 10 chunky challenging books might take away a lot more from them 10 books than somebody speed reading through 50 novellas. Number 9, I think you'll miss out on a lot of different people's opinions and lived experiences and cultures by missing these books, because a lot of these thick books, especially the like older classical stuff, there are so many references to art and culture and religion and history, like just immersed deep into these books. And by missing out on these books, we're missing out on an opportunity to just learn through another person's eyes. One of the reasons that I read books is to try and open my eyes to different worldviews and different political views. And I feel like, in my experience, a lot of the big chunky books that I've read have just opened my eyes so much to this author's worldview. I think one of the worst things that you can do when you involve politics is to shut off and close off discourse. I think it's important to be open to different opinions and different worldviews and different cultures and religions. And there are so many big chunky books out there where authors have taken a lot of time to try and open your eyes. And I feel sometimes we just close our eyes and are just blind to these pieces of art, really. Number 10, some stories just can't be rushed. Need I say more? Number 11, and this is a big one. I personally think that shorter books encourage shallow reading goals. And when I say that, what I mean is when we associate books with high numbers, it encourages us to just pick up short books for the sake of how short they are and how quick we can get through them, instead of books that might challenge our worldview or help us build just a deeper empathy, because books are unquestionably scientifically proven to increase empathy within humans. It is like choosing to eat snack food rather than a full meal, just so we can eat more snacks rather than one hearty meal. And I love me a good Sunday roast. Number 12, the memory factor. Studies show that people often forget short books, or are more likely to forget short books than longer books. And as somebody that does forget pretty much everything that he reads, I'll do anything just to try and hold on to the memories of that book for as long as I can. Number 13, better value for money. As someone that is tight as anything, I squeak when I walk, I don't like spending money on myself. Look, it's just a no-brainer. Why spend £10 on a book that's 300 pages when I can spend the same amount of money on a 1,200-page chonker? Number 14, and this should be why we all read, the joy of the journey. There's just, for me, no better feeling than spending 1, 2, 3, even 4 weeks in a book, getting lost with these characters in this world, and just exploring that world and experiencing that journey together with these characters. The book itself almost becomes part of your life, your daily routine, your thinking, and there's just no better feeling than spending that amount of time with the characters and getting to the end and just sitting and just thinking. And lastly, I feel like it builds confidence. I feel like when you read big chunky books, when you get to the end of them, it's almost like an achievement. You give yourself a pat on the back and think, you did it. You have got the attention span. You didn't ADHD NF it. Like, go on. Skipping big books just denies you the satisfaction of completing like a literary mountain. I want to climb this mountain. I don't know about you. Read big books. If after all that effort and sweating you've still decided that you're never going to read big books, then you're probably never likely to. But I don't think you should feel bad for that. I hope that, like me, the reason you pick up books is just for the sheer joy of it. This video is just solely me sharing my own reading experience and hopefully trying to pass on a couple of nuggets to you lot where you might be able to add that into your own reading journey and just add that bit of joy. If you are one of the people that reads 200 to 250 books a year and you enjoy doing so, then I implore you to keep doing it. This is just me trying to remind people to set their number one goal when it comes to reading as having fun and not worrying about page counts and book amounts and things like that. So we're now going to get into what are the 8 biggest books that I currently own that are on my TBR. There is a single caveat to this, in that there are some book ones on this list of series where the books progressively get bigger, but I haven't read them yet, so I'm just going to show you the book ones if they are part of a larger series. Starting in at number 8, the 8th biggest book that Tyrone currently has on his TBR, coming in at 617 pages, is Watership Down by Richard Adams. Now, the only thing I know about this book is that it's about rabbits who I believe get kicked out of their home because humans are feral and we've industrialised their natural habitat, which has then forced them to find a new home. And then en route, they go on this sort of mad mission where I would assume they're going to bump into other animals and maybe predators while they are the prey. The only reason that I am going into this book a bit more open-minded now is that I always thought this was a kid book. And then my father-in-law said to me that it's one of the most upsetting and dark films that he's ever seen. I was like, it's a kid's film. He's like, this ain't no kid's film. So I would assume that the book's of a similar kind of vein, because I'm yet to find a film that's better than a book. So if he says that the film is class, then I would assume that the book's just equally as class, which is why I added it to my TBR and which is why it's currently in my hand on this camera pointing at you. Coming in at number 8, Richard Adams, Watership Down. Coming in at number 7 at 628 pages is Malice by John Gwynne, who is the author of Faithful and the Fallen, which is this one, but also the author of Bloodsworn Trilogy, which is one of my favourite fantasy series of all time. John Gwynne writes battle scenes potentially better than anyone I've ever read in modern fantasy. They are just epic. They're the battle scenes that get you out your seat and you're just like, go on, smack him in the face. Like that kind of battle scene. The Norse inspired, he just does kick-ass characters. He's just really, really good and one of the most underrated modern fantasy writers of our time. So if you've not read John Gwynne yet, read him because he's bloody class. And everyone that I've spoke to, when I tell them I love the Bloodsworn Trilogy, they're always like, you need to read Faithful and the Fallen. This is so high on my TBR. Up next and coming in at number 6 on the chunky book list is The Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin, clocking in at 786 whopping pages of paper with ink on. Buzzing to read this. The only reason I've not picked it up sooner is because it's an incomplete series. George R.R. Martin, Patrick Rothfuss, who's the author of Name of the Wind, and Scott Lynch, who's the author of one of my favourite series of all time, the Gentleman Bastard series, have all decided to get writer's block. They've each produced some of the most magical pieces of fantasy in modern history, and upon doing so, they have seen worldwide acclaim. They've seen fans all over the world screaming out, we need more. And they've thought, nah, I don't think so. I think I'm done now, if that's all right. Everyone's like, no, it's not all right. We can't just think an ending. Yeah, well, there's a TV series, just watch that and figure it out. On a serious note, I am told that he is going to finish it at some point in the next 10 years. So I'll read it. I am going to read this, and it's only because in recent videos, a couple here have jumped into my comments and said to me, if you read the first 3 books, it does actually wrap it up quite nicely, and you can read them on their own, and then wait to see if the man decides if he's actually going to finish the series or not. So that's likely what I'm going to do with this series. Read the first 3 books, and then sit on the rest until he pulls his finger out his arse. Coming in at number 5, the 5th chunkiest book that I've got on my TBR is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. This comes in at 843 pages, and this is a book that I am just buzzing to read because I've never read Western before. I'm expecting warm deserts, tumbleweed and horses, but I'm also expecting just brilliant relationships. This is what I am expecting going into this book. I want to find bromances. I want to find like there and back again adventures, and I believe that's likely what I am going to find. This is probably going to be getting read in the next few months. This is just one of them books that every single person that I speak to that's read it has just said it completely changed how I think about literature and what's capable within written word. And that excites me. The thought of sitting down and reading these 843 pages just makes me feel just so warm and fuzzy inside. So excited to read this one. Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry, if you want to add it onto your TBR. What are we now? 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4th chunkiest book on my TBR is Ships of Magic by Robin Hobb. This is book 1 in the Live Ship Traders trilogy, which is the 2nd trilogy in the Realm of the Elderlings. I read the first trilogy, which is the Farseer. earlier on this year. Absolutely loved it. Robin Hobb's character work is spectacular. For me, Hobb and Abercrombie feel very similar in the way that the plots aren't necessarily the quickest plots in the world, but the character work, the amount of time them authors take to focus on building the characters, dealing with trauma, dealing with just real life. You could almost, if you took away the dialogue prompts, and by dialogue prompts I mean the he said, Fitz said, if you took them away from a Robin Hobb or a Joe Abercrombie book, I truly believe that you would still know which character said that, because their personalities and dialogue is just so real. I'm so excited to read this. The next two books in this series are even chunkier, and this book comes in at 880 pages. Buzzing! The third biggest book. I wonder if you've guessed any so far. I reckon you might have guessed a couple. The third biggest book that I own, coming in at 1,067 pages, is It by Stephen King. I know that a few of you have watched previous videos, and you know that I am currently on a journey of finding my best Stephen King books. So far, a couple have hit, a couple have missed. This is one that I'm really excited to read because I've never watched the movie. How crazy is that? But when I bought this book, I picked it up expecting it just to be a horror about a clown. I'm told that it's so much more than that. It's all about adolescence and what it's like to be a kid. And that excites me. I'm expecting to go into this and read about these young boys, and hopefully it gives me a bit of nostalgia and reminds me about what it was to be young again, because I often miss that. Don't you? You sometimes sit there and just think, oh, what I would do to go back to school again, and then go home and take my clothes off and just be a kid again for 3 or 4 hours. This is what I want from this book. I want to go back to being a child again for a bit, but I'm also accepting that I'm going to have to run away from some sort of crazy killer clown who scares the shit out of me. Yeah, It, Stephen King. The second biggest book that I've got on my list, coming in at 1,211 pages, is another book by Esteban King, The Stand, which I believe is some sort of post-apocalyptic book that's going to have loads of people in it who are just trying to survive and stuff. I don't know any more than that. I've said on a previous video that I'm trying to go into this book as blind as I possibly can, only because of the hype behind this book. When I said that I was going to start reading Stephen King books, so many people said, The Stand, if you're going to read any, please read The Stand. I went onto Reddit, and all of the lists that everyone kept kind of recommending, it was The Stand, it was It, and it was that one with loads of numbers in it. All of them were saying the same ones. So I want to go into this book as blind as possible, and I'm just truly excited for 1,200 pages of what I'm hoping is just an absolutely mad ride. Have you guessed what the number one book is? The biggest, the chunkiest, the fattest book that I have got on my TBR. You might be able to see it over my shoulder. Coming in at 1,389 pages, Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. I have already read The Way of Kings and The Words of Radiance in this series. Absolutely spectacular, absolutely gagged for them. This is the third book in the Stormlight archive, and to say I'm excited to read this is an understatement. I am just in awe of what this man can do with a pen and paper, or a typewriter, or a PC, whatever they use these days. The world building by Brandon Sanderson, the character work, the mental health representation is just absolutely top tier and spectacular. If you haven't read Brandon Sanderson, I encourage you to do so. I do think that the Mistborn trilogy is probably the easier way to start, or place to start, with Brandon Sanderson, but I don't think that if you want to start with the Stormlight Archive that you'll struggle. Brandon Sanderson holds your hand throughout the entire process. Yes, his world is big. Yes, the magic system and the history of the world is detailed, intricate, but he also holds your hand. His writing is just very accessible, and I think that everyone, if you're interested in fantasy, should try him out and not be put off by the sheer girth of these books, because it's not wasted paper. Everything that he writes is intentional, and it all leads to some of the best payoffs towards the last 10% of the book in modern fantasy. They will get you out your seat, kicking, screaming, and it'll just make you want more. So they are my reasons why you should start reading chunky books. They are my 8 chunkiest books that I am just super buzzing to read, hopefully in 2025 leading into 2026. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you've watched to this point, as always, I love you the most. And if you've not already subscribed, please do so. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. Mwah.